So today we're going to be installing the new Renovision Pro line shower valve. And this bad boy here, it's a new product on the market, the new Pro Series. This is a mixing valve, hot, cold, and then one outlet, and then the second outlet. Now, oddly enough, this one comes with its a 3/4 inch line for crimping, or it's a 1/2 inch piece of male copper here, so that you could just put copper line right over top and extend down to a tub, or you can add that little stopper there with solder. The other option you might want to try is a shark bite, but on further inspection we found that when you compress that on there as hard as it can go, it doesn't allow for the interior of that valve to actually work, and that pops off without any. Don't use the shark bite on this valve. There's just not quite enough room. Note to Renovision Pro, if you want to make a modification so that this valve stem is a little bit longer, then we could use our shark bite. In this situation, the back of this wall is a storage room. We'd have access to it. That'd be a perfectly legitimate installation. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to open up this valve. And this is just a temporary thing here. We're going to take that out because it's got a rubber gasket on it, and we don't want to overheat it. So we're going to actually solder on our 1/2 inch copper cap. Okay, and so this is how we're going to do it. We're going to do that first before we get into any of the construction, because we want to give this time to cool off again before we handle it. Now, at the hardware store, you can buy a little soldering kit for dummies. It's pretty new stuff. Comes with solder, comes with flux. Okay, so we're gonna just light up our torch, really simple. You'll hear the gas out of flame. All right, so here we go. So what I do is I just set my torch on the ground. We're on concrete. If you're over top of any other kind of flooring, put some protection down. When the solder drips out, it's actually quite hot and it can burn your flooring. So we're gonna scratch out the inside of our cap just to create some grooves there where my solder can sit in. And get some flux paste. We're gonna just wipe that up. And that acid basically sets up that copper so it's nice and clean. So we're gonna just heat where we want the solder to go. So we don't want to heat that part, we want to heat over here, because that's where we want the solder to go. So we'll put that in the flame. Now, this gas in this system, it's a little slower than a MPS gas or a plumber's torch and acetylene torch. We want to heat the copper to the point where we heat the copper and the brass. When the brass is hot enough over here that the solder melts, oh, there it goes. Starting to suck it up. And now I'm just going to push my solder rod right in the side. And when there's enough left over that it falls out. Now we're done. We'll just give it a bit of a wipe. There we go. So when I'm doing a job like this, I like to think ahead of myself, and I set up, I know I have my water lines coming down. My center line is going to be here. It's really tight to bring a water line down and join it over. So I'm going to drill a hole, bring the water from this side. So I'll just lay out my fittings, make sure I got everything I need before I get started. You have to pay attention here because you need something to mount this diverter on. This valve body needs something. Now, so the middle of this plastic line, which is basically, it tells you anywhere here, okay, that's where your wall needs to finish. So I'm going to set this back 3 inches, 2.5 inches plus my wall board, and I'll be at 3 inches finished plus tile. I'll be great. The way you set this is you pretend you're standing in your shower and you just go grab it. Boom, this high, okay? And we're gonna go back 2.5 inches with my lumber. At 38. So we're just setting up our 2x4 in the wall. Now you want it to be nice and sturdy so it's not going to twist. You don't want to have your valve body moving around inside the wall. Mark our center line for our valve body, right there. Okay, so that's the center line for my valve body. All right. So we're gonna hold this up on that center line. That's where we're gonna mount it. There's my mounting screws right there and there. And this is where I need my hole for my water supply. Okay, I would use this bit here, it's 3/4, it's plenty big enough. But because it's so close and so tight, I'm gonna give myself a little extra wiggle room. Using this self-feeding auger bit. So really simple, guys. We're gonna put our copper ring on the pipe. And it's nice, we got this color-coded PEX line here. We're gonna go 1/4 inch up. And this is this wonderful little tool. Now, you pull these back and it opens it right up. Okay, and then it's a crimper as well. So once we got the crimper on position, we'll turn the fitting and then squeeze. Now there's a position of this handle that like really stiff, and then once you get past the point of where it needs to be, it just collapses on you. So again, we can take that off. Has this wonderful little plate here, and it says go or no go. It has the different dimensions, 3/8, 3/4. We're using 1/2 inch. So we're gonna just see if that fits. Perfect, you see? Neat, eh? That's how you measure. It's a little gauge to measure that your crimp is the right size. Awesome. Give ourselves that 1/4 inch. Okay, and crimp. Quick double check, and good to go. Okay, so now we got that one set up. Here we go. So now we have lots of line to play with. And we're gonna cut it on the short side first. Get that ring installed. And then we'll make this one a little bit shorter. Here we go. Put in our ring. Personally, I find it easier to connect my plumbing before I mount it. Again, come by, check your fitting with your gauges, make sure it goes on nice. Okay, I'm going to install this supply line. For all these guys on YouTube who are upset about the O-rings that I used before, this system, I mean, yeah, great. It seems like it works great, has a nice compression, but this is a two-hand operation. And these rings slide up and down off the PEX way too easily, so you almost need a third hand to operate this thing. So this isn't just a simple shower valve. So it's not a valve with a shower head. What we're putting on here is an adjustable slide bar. So we're gonna have our hose attached to the shower head, which releases off the slide bar, comes down under and over, attaches to this drop ear here. So now we gotta get our water supply from here through the other side of the wood and then down to this location. I usually like to have it, you know, somewhere close so that it hangs nice. Not a real big issue, so we got to drill another hole. There we go. There we go. Now, using this testing gauge might seem a little monotonous, but this is a great way to find out if you missed locking one of your joints. So I got a few flooring screws here. I'm going to use that to mount my drop gear. They're a lot stronger than drywall screws. And yet, they don't stick out the other side and cause any friction with my line. When you're buying a system like a Rebel Pro, a lot of times you'll get the rough-in or the valve body and then a trim kit separate. If you buy from the building stores, you'll get it all in the same box. The rough-in valve comes with this temporary plug, very similar to a Delta system. And if you don't have the finish kit when you install this and you put it together, this is a great temporary fix, right? You screw that on, now you're watertight, you can turn the pressure on. But now they're sharing that area with the hot and the cold water line, and the hot water will win. So that heat will travel back up the cold water line and presumably over to the toilet and put hot water in your toilet. Then the toilet starts to sweat, something fierce, and then your client calls you up and says, how come my toilet is making water all over the floor? Get the trim kit at the same time and install the finish valve right away. When you're done your entire job, you might want to open it up again and flush it just to make sure there's no debris in the line so it's operating properly. What we're going to do is just check the paperwork real quick. All right, that was warranty. Finish valve, yes, it calls for a 2 installation, okay. One just slides over the other, blah, 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 blah. Good. All right, now I'm not guessing. It's pretty straightforward actually, but I just don't want to guess. Okay. So that lines up like that, and this lines up like that. These 2 holes there. Okay, this says you do finger tight and then a 1/4 turn with a wrench. Meet the wrench. Now all that's left to do is pressurize the lines, make sure it's not dripping, and we can complete our wall installation and our tiling, and then we'll come back and put the trims on at the end of the day.